Let's transition to the NHS deal. We should be getting an update on that in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Mariana from Bank of America, in her report, she's bullish on us getting the deal, but she also acknowledges that some of the patients in the UK have signaled to the NHS that they won't give up their data willingly, voluntarily, if they know a private company has access to it. And so there is a world in which the government ends up just not giving it to Palantir because they're afraid there's going to be too many people that opt out of submitting their patient data. I've had other people on Twitter who are from the UK, tweet at me saying, "Look, no one cares about Palantir. Like, we just care about the NHS getting better. We don't give a shit about data privacy and all that stuff." So it's, what do you guys think? What's your gut feeling? Do you think we get this deal? And if we do get the deal, what do you think it does for the company overall?
Dude, if I have to go to the hospital, the last thing I'm asking is, where's my data going?
Yeah. No.
I mean, it's just not something that's going through my mind. Like, if I have to go to the hospital, am I really asking a question of who's doing the back service? Like, I'm trusting that the hospital did their due diligence. That's not on my list of concerns. Whoever is talking about this is probably just not happy with Palantir for other reasons.
I first and foremost agree with that, so I don't want to devalue that statement. To me, I would prefer a company, I mean, this is my bias coming through obviously here, but I would prefer a company like Palantir having it, because say they end up working with other government agencies within the UK, and it's like, just like the way we use Apollo, or Apollo needs to be needed, they can then give access to my data to a multitude of different entities in the UK government at that point, and I don't have to provide that again, right? Think about every time you go into a different doctor's office and having to need to fill out your information again, and them storing it in a different database, and it's then, it's like, I just told this to my pediatrician. Why do I have to tell this to my dentist? All this stupid shit that you wouldn't have to necessarily go with anymore if everything was just stored under one database, right? And I think that is where I eventually hope Palantir kind of gets to, where there's intermingling and webs of databases that connect to each other on all the different sort of back end databases that communicate internally at the government. So that way you don't necessarily have to do it. And I think, in honesty, if Palantir was smart, they would make a consumer focused product to allow you to basically have access to an Apollo, which allows you to hit yes, I'm granting this agency to connect to this database, where you can then pay a couple dollars a month or whatever it is to kind of say you have a lot of different doctor's appointments or kids' doctor's appointments or something of the like. It's like you already have everything on your phone and medical information on your phone, and you go to a new pediatrician and they want to have your kids' data, you can just hit yes, and it automatically uploads it to and gives them access to that data. Or say you go to the Canadian government, you have the same opportunity to allow them access to your data, and you have it available on your phone to be able to provide that. I think that something like that, a product like that, would be very useful, because then it gets back away from what the true matter at hand is that Steve just talked about. Getting the person that's showing up fixed, whether it's an emergency, whether it's, it just add efficiency. Now, of course, there's always is my data going to get hacked? Is it going to get used against me? There's a reason why Palantir is IL6, right? They know they have the procedures and protocols in place to provide that sort of security blanket, and hopefully people can sleep well at night. But there's always going to be political propaganda that shows up against it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought you were going to go the direction of like make a MyFitnessPal type of copycat, but tailored towards consumers, which I think also would be pretty cool if Palantir could do that. Obviously, that would be a much more difficult challenge, but I think getting this deal is it's pivotal, like, for the company, because if we don't get this deal, it means the stigma of all the negative sentiment around them, like, it's not going to make or break the company over the next decade, but it's definitely going to suck, because it means that it really did stop them from getting a big contract. And if the UK decides to give it to another tech company, I'm sure all of us will deep dive into that tech company. And if that tech company is appropriate enough or better than Palantir, or we look at their stuff and we're like, oh my God, is their tech that much better? And if it's not, we would all know what the answer is for why they didn't get the deal. So I hope we get it, but I'm kind of skeptical at the last minute, the government's going to pull something where they're just afraid of the backlash.
But if they don't get it, it doesn't change anything on the enterprise side. It just
No.
it just means that they went with a different company, and depending on how good the company's tech is, it's either a smart play or it's a political play, and that'll come out. But ultimately, it's not going to stop Palantir from doing business with the United States government. It's not going to stop Palantir from doing business with other governments. It's not going to stop what they have in the pipeline with Jacobs or Cisco or BP or anybody else. I mean, yes, there's way more upside if they get the deal, but it's not a deal breaker if they don't get the deal.
I think it'd be likely that what ends up happening if they don't get the deal is that when contracts come up for renewal in several years, they end up re-signing with Palantir, just based off of knowing that, you know, they had Hospital 360 and then it was unfortunately taken away from them. And I'm sure you're going to have a lot of nurses and a lot of others complain because they have to learn a new system, one, and then two, that system is likely not to be utilized. It's pretty funny. At UDOC, we'll end up, we sometimes still use consultants to kind of create these other applications. And then after about 6 months after these consultants leave, they start having bugs and then nobody can fix them. And then eventually we just embed whatever they did into Palantir because it just works. And what happens? We no longer have to hire those consultants anymore. Like it's pretty funny. It's like we should have just done it at UDOC in the first place instead of having, like, we should have just called up some forward development engineer, be like, hey, we want to implement this into our workflow. And, you know, but instead we have this new conversation, these new people that can solve our problems, and boom, you know, and we've done that several times with several different applications at UDOC.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Look, I ultimately think we will get it. If they do segment it and we get a part of it and other companies get a part of it, that's like the NHS's way of, it's a cop-out, essentially, of not really fixing the problem and trying to deal with everything going on in the public. But there's a part of me that thinks, you know, CARP will get it done. I mean, we've been lobbying them. The head of digital AI strategy is now working at Palantir. I mean, we've just done so much work to get this deal that if we don't get it, it would be interesting.
I mean, have we ever heard anything about CARP meeting with the heads of Finland and stuff a year ago? I mean, have we heard any follow-up associated with a lot of that stuff? Or is it kind of just gone radio quiet? And who knows, maybe we're supplying them with stuff as well. It's just not publicized.
Yeah.